Welcome to Cross Border Interviews. Our goal on this show is to create meaningful municipal conversations that inform, that connect, that educate, and that also strengthen communities from coast to coast to coast here in Canada. Now, for this edition of Cross Border Interviews, we are honored to welcome to the show from Oxford County and as well the City of Woodstock, Councillor Bernia Martin. Located in the heart of southwestern Ontario at the crossroads of Highway 401 and 403, Oxford County has a population of approximately 130,000 residents across 8 area municipalities that are growing stronger together. Situated in one of Ontario's richest areas for farmland, agriculture is a key industry that is driving innovation in sustainable industries and diversifying the local economy. Oxford County offers a thriving local arts and culture scene, as well as conservation parks, natural areas, and more than 100 kilometers of scenic trails. This is Cross Border Interviews. In the heart of every thriving community lies a well-crafted strategic plan. But crafting such a plan requires expertise, experience, and a deep understanding of local needs. Enter Strategic Steps, your partner in municipal strategic planning. Strategic Steps' team of experts have years of experience in municipal administration. At Strategic Steps, they just don't develop plans. They co-create homegrown strategies tailored to your unique community. They listen, they collaborate, they empower your community to thrive. Contact Strategic Steps today and take the first step towards a brighter future for your municipality. Call Strategic Steps at 780-416-9255 or visit strategicsteps.ca to get started. Councillor, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Actually, I shouldn't say just Councillor. Councillor, Deputy Warden, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and talking about the City of Woodstock and also Oxford County. But before we talk about the municipalities, let's get to know the person behind the persona a little bit, if you don't mind, with a very simple question I've asked over 900 times now. Where does your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Bernia?
It is a great question. I'm sure of all the times you've asked it, you've gotten hundreds of different answers. I would say serving my community was demonstrated by my parents. For them, it was their church community rather than their civic community, but it was demonstrated every day of my life growing up. And I think that instilled that intrinsic value that I wanted to also serve it just in a slightly different capacity. Before becoming elected, I actually worked for municipalities for 15 years. I worked in economic development. And through those 15 years, I worked with some incredible mayors and councillors and wardens. And I worked with a few that led me to believe that this could be done better. And I think that sort of challenged me to look at municipal work and the work of a councillor and what skill set would I bring to the table if I was going to try and do the very best job that I could in serving my community.
Does that come easy to you, serving your community? Because I can imagine there's days that are challenging and there's days that are long. But for you, and I've looked at your background, it seems like duty has always been instilled upon you, even going back to your parents. Does it come easy to just get up every morning and give back to the community that has made you who you are?
Yeah, I mean, there are council meetings where you come home and you just need to sit on the couch and go, whoa. But you still get up the next day and do it all over again. Sometimes those tough moments actually fuel you to go on and get up and keep doing it. Because the tough moments, that resistance when it happens, actually means that you're doing something right. And when you put that lens into it and you look at it from that perspective, that makes me want to get up and keep working towards solutions for a community when we are facing so many challenges.
Ooh, and it's not just Oxford County and the city of Woodstock that's facing a lot of challenges. Every municipality right now is facing a lot of challenges. But there's two things I want to pick up before we talk about the mentality of a counselor, if you don't mind. You talked about a former warden or a current warden who sort of said you should put your hat in the ring and sort of help, sort of be part of the solution, if you will. Where did that sense of, okay, if I'm going to give back to my community, I need to be around that council table? Because from just the brief time that we've met talk so far, your parents weren't involved politically unless they were, that you said they gave back through the church. So where did the political bug come from?
So I'll try and keep the story short, but back in 2006 is when I first started doing municipal work. And in 2008, 2009, of course, we hit that economic downturn. And I was working in economic development in Perth County. I'm going to name some names. John Wilkinson was the MPP for Perth County at the time.
And
And
Minister of Environment, if I'm not mistaken.
he was Minister of Environment, he was Minister of Revenue, he was Minister of Research and Innovation. He had a number of portfolios. But very early in my work for Perth County, I got connected with John. And of course, John is just one of those incredibly approachable people. But John is also solutions incredibly smart, but he's solutions oriented. And one of the, I was on the job for 8 days when Campbell Soups, a major manufacturer in Listowel, announced that they were shuttering that plant and moving to, I think it was Pennsylvania. And I was like, and I was like, okay, John, what are we going to do here? And it was working with John, working with the local mayor, working with councillors, talking to OMAFRA. It was OMAFRA at the time, not OMAFA. Pulling in all of those resources and that whole 2 year experience of the gradual shuttering of the plant, bringing in a new buyer, um, really was all about collaboration, pulling out every tool you have in the toolbox to make this work. And it was so I have to say, it was John that made me go, oh, John is doing this type of work. He was doing it at the provincial level, but he was doing it well. He was demonstrating to me every day that when you put in the work, positive results will materialize. And
Was
and it was that whole experience that made me go, okay, maybe I love the staff piece of it, but maybe one day I'll serve at a municipal or, maybe eventually one day at a provincial level. But we'll talk about that
No, and I'm not
another.
going to. So we should just mention you did run provincially, but I'm not going to talk about that a lot because what I want to talk about though is what was it about the municipal draw? Because at the end of the day, your background, your career, your resume, you could have chosen provincially to run in that very first election that you did, but you chose municipal. To me, always the best level of government, in my honest, humble opinion, but that's just me. What was it about what was going on in the city of Woodstock? Because that's the first tier level of government that you're elected to. And then when you're elected to the city of Woodstock, you get appointed, if I'm not mistaken, to Oxford County, correct?
No, I'm a direct to elect, so I ran for the dual
Oh,
position.
so you're a
Yeah,
regional direct counselor.
yes. So Oxford County is a region. So Woodstock, because of its population, has three representatives at Oxford County. So I chose a position that to run for both positions.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm originally from
it's unique.
Clarington, Ontario, so it's
Yeah.
very like I don't know what they're always called in different locations, but yes, I know what you're talking about. So what made you want to run for that sort of two-tier municipal structure and say, okay, I want to serve at the city of Woodstock, but I also want to serve on Oxford County?
So I think the 15 years of working for municipalities, and I've always worked in a two-tier system, and I've worked at the upper tier and I've worked for the member municipalities in economic development. So I've experienced both
Yeah.
sides of it. I think when I made that decision in July of 2022 to run, I could have run for city council, right? Get that base experience, get that your foot in the door. But I felt that that 15 years of municipal experience positioned me to consider that dual run. It is very unusual for a non-incumbent to come into that upper tier role. Highly unusual. But I
The
had
people
worked
put their
with
trust in you.
well, yeah, and the votes showed up, but I had a lot of encouragement from other mayors who already sat at Oxford County Council who had known me for years because I had worked for their communities in economic development. So I already had a head start, um, and it paid off.
It certainly did. I want to talk about the role of council for a second because we talked about the challenges, and there's some days that you have to sort of go home and go, but you know
Yep.
you did right. And when you said you know you did right, it kind of perked my ears up because there's a question I often ask on this show. There's 100% of the people in your community who will never agree on anything. 100% of the population of Oxford County or even city
Yep.
of Woodstock will never agree on anything that is said. You can
Yep.
go outside right now and say the sky is blue and says no, it's aquamarine.
Yep.
That is the way that's the world we live in. So when you have to make tough choices, how do you know you're doing the right thing, knowing that people are just going to be upset with how you have voted or the direction you want to take the county or the city in?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I'm a big believer in data-driven decision making. I do my research. I don't necessarily. I'm reluctant to make decisions based on nostalgia or feelings. I am more likely to make decisions on facts, information, and I'm very much a decision maker that I don't I'm not just considering this decision for today. I am considering it for 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years down the road. The decision we make today, how it might be a little bit painful today, but long term, we will be better off if we make X decision. So that's hard to do, and it's hard for most taxpayers and residents to align with because they're seeing the instant moment. What does it mean to me today? And they're not seeing the long term payoff, so to speak. And if I could, well, do you want an example?
Go
Yeah.
for it. That's
So,
we have an hour to spare here, Bernie. So go for it.
well, we have just brought in green bin organics collection. It started in January. It actually wasn't supposed to start until May of next year, but part of my advocacy work was to advance that, bring it forward, bring it into 2026, because 2026 is when recycling is changing here in Ontario. Recycling is no longer a municipal responsibility. It has gone to a third party, circular materials for us, circular materials. And that left an opportunity, a gap that we could bring that organics forward. We also are in a municipality where we use a user pay bag tag system for our black bags of garbage. And last year, we voted uh, under heavy debate to increase the bag tag rate from $2 to $3. It had not been reevaluated in a decade. And that cost of $2 is to pay for the trucks, the fuel, the maintenance on those trucks, the insurance on those trucks, and the people that drive those trucks that drive around all day to collect your bags and then take it out to the landfill and do it all again tomorrow. In 10 years, those costs have gone up. They've gone up for everyone. And so moving from $2 to $3 financially makes sense. Nobody liked it. Nobody liked the idea of that 50% increase in, well, first of all, no one likes bag tags to begin with, let's be honest. But it just compounded angst and ire. But when we introduced green bins in January of this year, so the bag tag decision was February of last year. So just imagine that anger festering for 10 months. We introduced green bins in January of this year. Green bins now significantly reduce how many black bags with a tag need to go out to the curb. But until people start experiencing it, they don't understand the real world impact that this will have. Now,
Can I play
not
devil's
everybody
advocate with you
adopts.
for a second, though?
Pardon?
Can I play devil's advocate with you for a second?
Absolutely.
Because I find this so you're a self-described data-driven counselor. You look at the data and you look at the realities. Now that is great and that is commendable. But the people who are upset, they may be living paycheck to paycheck. You don't know the real world implications that this could happen. So while you are data driven, how important is it to you also to keep that open mind and say, yes, I'm not going to vote on things for touchy feely stuff, but I also have to hear the real world implications from what my residents are telling me, because if I'm not listening to them, then what am I doing in this job? Is it hard, or do you find yourself needing to balance who you are with the realities of what a counselor needs to vote on?
No, because to me, so the $3 impact started on January 1st. The green bins started on January 1st, and they offset each other. In
Okay.
fact, they're offsetting each other. And I knew that, and I knew that because I moved here to Woodstock from another municipality where we had green bins. I had that experience. I had the data. I had the financial information from staff. I knew that if people, and it's a choice to adopt your green bin, right? Not everybody has, and not everybody will, but if you want to save money on your bag tags, adopt the green bin. And but people have free will and they can do as they wish.
Do you look at the decisions you have to make around the council table and with both levels here? And we'll just talk about both levels here at the exact same time. When you have to make those tough decisions, you have to get feedback from the residents. How important is it for you to go out and communicate that decision that you've made? Because you're right, 100 or for a $2 increase to or $2 increase to bag tags, right? From
One
$1
dollar
to
increase, two
$1
dollars to
to
$3.
three
Yep.
dollars. Okay. Too many small
Uh,
numbers to throwing around. The journalist doesn't know how to pay attention correctly. So you go from $2 to $3. That is a big increase for some people, and some people that may say, okay, that's not that bad. But when you make that decision, when you raise that hand and say, yes, I've made that decision, how important is communication? And I know communication is very important to you because I've been studying your Substack over the last few days, and probably since you've started posting them, I think more regularly in 2025, 2026 that I've seen. So, how important is it for you to communicate why you have chosen to go this route as an individual counselor?
yeah, so it's incredibly important too because uh, people will see in the news, Oxford County councilors approved a, $1 increase in your bag tag, and that just, but there isn't the whole background report and the data and the facts in that 40-second news blurb. And so I think it's really important to break it down for people. So the Substack, I really only started in January. I have been trying to figure out how to communicate other than social media, because social media is a very complex place to disseminate a large volume of facts to average, residents. Um,
But
with, so the Substack really has helped break it down, present the facts. What is this? Why did we do it? How did we get here? How does this benefit you? And then it's people choose to read it, right? I'm not forcing anybody to read something. It's voluntary. It comes to their inbox. Um, but I
so
have found that even some of the biggest critics who used to just jump all over me on social media are now just quietly clicking the like button when they read a Substack. It has diffused some people. It hasn't diffused everyone, but
again,
I've been
100%
at
of
it
the
for six
people
weeks.
won't. So going back to the original sort of the making the decisions around that council table, you talk about communications, you have your new platform, and then you mentioned something that I just pick up a lot on when I talk to municipal leaders. I would say, and again, for those who are watching this, this is Chris Brown, the host of the Cross Border interviews, saying this, not the counselors. So please, if you have any nasty emails, please send them to me because this is my opinion and my opinion alone. I have noticed a move away from municipal politics over the last 10 years. More and more people are not showing up to council chambers to learn about what's going on in the community. More and more people are being more reactive to issues rather than being proactive to find out why these issues are being presented in front of council. But again, that is the reason why they've elected you. They don't have 2 hours to read a 200 page report on a bag tag increase or 200-page report on infrastructure. That's why they've elected you. In your role as deputy warden and as counselor, do you get a sense that people are more proactive in approaching you with their issues, or are they more reacting to the issues when they see it in that 40-second soundbite on I'm not picking on any news outlet right now, so please apologize, CBC or CTV.
Yeah, so I think there are some people that are naturally curious and they do want to know what's going on. And there are a large number of people that don't want to know at all what is going on municipally. What people and that category of people want to know is, if I walk into my kitchen and I turn on the tap, is the water clean? And when I get the bill, can I afford it? That's the lens at which they care about. They don't know that the hospital isn't a municipal jurisdiction, and they don't know that the arena isn't an upper tier. They just want to know that the service that they experienced yesterday is still going to be there today, and they can afford it.
How do you deal with that? Because that is a good point. Because in Ontario, there's two-tier municipalities for those anyone watching this outside of Ontario. So there is the lower tier, which is the city of Woodstock, which you represent, and then there's the upper tier, which is the Oxford County. Now, Oxford County is a large geographic area, and I believe it has seven municipalities
Eight.
within it, eight
Yep.
municipalities within it. So when you're talking to residents, do they know who they're talking to? Like, do they understand that they have to talk to deputy warden for this issue or counselor? Or again, last 10 years, I've seen a blurring of jurisdictional lines in this
Yep.
country. Are they talking to you about healthcare? That is not a provincial issue, not a municipal issue, or education. That is not a municipal issue.
Yep.
But because you are the closest to the people, you're not in Toronto doing your job, you're not in Ottawa doing your job. I know Bernia. I'm going to talk to her because she's my local elected official, and I've elected her to represent me, even depending on the issue. She's going to represent me. Do you get a sense that people understand who they need to talk to?
No, they don't. And that's okay. I mean, really, unless you are embedded in the world of municipal work, we are the only people that care about that red line on a map, that red boundary. No one else. They care about, where do they go to school, where do they go to work, where do they get their groceries. They don't care what side of the boundary line it's on. They don't know who paid for the pipes under their street. They just know that when they go and turn on the tap, it's clean water comes out and it's safe to drink and they can afford it. That's so no, I would say by and large, most people do not follow county council at all. Very few people engage or understand what, because it's a lot. Even as a counselor, it's a lot. So I understand why people don't invest in learning that, but they do elect people, and people will complain between election dates that, you're not representing me or you're not making decisions for me. Well, I wouldn't make that decision as a claim. Well, no, but you elected me to make that decision for you. And I'm never going to please 100% of the people all of the time. No matter what you do, you will disappoint some people. And the decisions have to be made for the greater good and for the long-term vision and benefit to the community.
Okay, I have one last question in the segment that we have to turn to the municipal issues, if you don't mind, because the greater good is the key word that I often like just jump at when I hear it. The greater good in municipal politics is when you walk into that council table, you cannot just look at an issue through a city of Woodstock lens or a city town of Ingersoll lens. You have to look at it through an Oxford County lens, and always an Oxford County lens. And that means sometimes the Oxford County Council may vote for something that is not going to help the city of Woodstock, but at the end of the day, you're there to represent them all. When it comes to the greater good is the entire county as a whole. How do you balance that perspective of knowing that the people of Woodstock have elected you to be on that county council, but you still have to just not always think about them at the end of the day because you have to think of Oxford County as a whole and not the city of Woodstock as a whole.
Yeah, so this week is a good example. We have a report coming on Wednesday to County Council about rural road safety. It really has very little to do with Woodstock. It is about um, highways, intersections, high-speed travel. Uh, but indirectly, I think when I read that report, I think about, okay, how does this eventually impact the city of Woodstock resident? Because it will impact on emergency calls. on ambulance calls, on all of those rural road traffic accidents land at Woodstock Hospital. And how does my, Woodstock resident then have to navigate a system that they're sharing with, a wider geography? So, you know, rural road safety, it isn't sexy, but it is important. And most people in Woodstock don't care about the three-way or the four-way stop or the roundabout in a rural community, but I do care, because if we don't do rural road safety properly, it drains Woodstock resources.
How much time, and I don't want to say energy, but how much time do you give yourself to learn about the issue, but not be so inundated by trying to figure out the correct solution? Because a counselor that you sit with on Oxford County may know the rural roads a little bit better than a city counselor. So how often do you find yourself calling up a rural counselor and say, "Hey, can we talk about this? Because I want to get my head around it so I can make the best informed decision." Or do you leave it up to administration? Because as a former administration myself, the worst thing that a counselor can do, in my opinion, is go for a walkabout and learn to think about things that I don't know how to answer when I get grilled at the council meeting.
Yeah, I'm never going to be a subject matter expert. I missed every single day of engineering school, but my phone is my tool. So even this morning, the group chat with three others, we have to not be quorum, but three other rural counselors that sit at Oxford County about that report. What are their perspectives? What are their concerns? What do they want to see happen? How do I work with them to advance rural road safety? Is the report enough? Are the recommendations enough? Should we be pushing for more? If we were, these are all hypotheticals. If we
Yeah.
were going to push for more, what would a motion look like? What would that cost? And these are the conversations that, are in, sometimes it's phone calls, sometimes it's small group meetings of 3 or 4 counselors at a time. People think that municipal council is you wheel into a council meeting every other Thursday or every other Wednesday or whatever day your week is, and then you get up and you leave and you do absolutely nothing until the next council meeting. And that's not what it is. If you want to do this job properly, there is a lot of work that goes into every single report, every single meeting, every single issue, because a lot of these issues, well, we're feeling them here at the municipal, at the lower or upper tier level, they're provincial issues. And so what lens does that put on your advocacy work? And this is not a 3 or 4 hour a week job. This is, for me, is a full-time gig. Between all of the committees and the boards and all of the areas that you serve, it is a full-time commitment.
Well, it certainly is. I want to turn to the Oxford County and the city of Woodstock as a whole. And before I do this, I do have a bit of a preamble, so bear with me, counselor, while I get
Sure.
through this. This is a conversation between the counselor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not even a policy of council. This is her opinion and her opinion alone. Now, it may line up with what's going on at the City of Woodstock Council table and Oxford County Council table, but at the end of the day, it's still her opinion. She needs a majority of members to vote in favor or against any motion, policy, or bylaw to direct administration to implement or repeal said motion, policy, or bylaw. With that being said, Counselor, we are recording this at the end of February 2026. I'm going to start with one question, but I'm going to split it into two if you don't mind, and you can take it either way to start off with. In your opinion, what do you see as the biggest challenge or challenges facing the city of Woodstock in your role as counselor and the Oxford County in your role as deputy warden?
There's a lot of answers that I could give to that, right? There's lots of challenges, there's lots of opportunities, but there's a lot of challenges municipalities are facing, and they're not alone, they're not just Woodstock or just Oxford County. But I feel like one of the biggest considerations that we need to be giving right now is to growth. The province requires us to submit a growth forecast. They require us to set targets. They require us to, have enough land. They require us to set density targets. And growth can be good, but growth needs to be planned. Growth can be incredibly expensive if it is not done properly. If you don't plan out for it and understand the real costs associated with growth, there will be pinch points down the road. The other challenge with growth is that, and I mean uh, population growth really has provincial impacts, upper tier impacts, and lower tier impacts, and yet the forecast that we are encouraged to adopt is at the upper tier level. But growth, if we're not handling growth well now, how do we expect more growth to be better, to financially, economically, socially improve our community? So the provincial level growth is okay. So if the city of Woodstock is a population of 50,000 right now, and in 36 years our projected growth is to be 90,000 people, where are they going to go to school? What doctor are they going to go to? What long-term care facility are they going to access? Right? There's a lot of provincial impacts that we have no control over. If we grow to a certain size, is the province going to be there to put in those provincial resources for a safe and healthy and well community? Then at the upper tier, there are aspects that can be considered. So if we're going to have that amount of growth, Oxford County growing from, I think we're at 130,000 people, and the projection is to go to 225,000 people, how are we going to pay for the water pipes, the roads, the amount of traffic on our roads? How are we going to, the number of planners that you need, the number of planning applications, like just the sheer volume of documentation? We're already not doing well from a human services lens of homelessness prevention and transitional housing and so on. If our population continues to grow, it will put added pressure onto those services. But then there's issues to growth that are at the local municipal level. So if you grow from 50,000 people to 90,000 people, that's another arena, it's another fire hall, it's another library, and so if we're already challenged with the growth we have experienced in the last number of years, how are we possibly going to financially, socially, and economically prepare for more growth?
Can you do it?
Well, I think it can be done, but I think,
Okay, can I ask the second question that I was going to ask?
yeah,
The follow-up that is, okay, if you can do it, what's the obstacle? Is it all three are not talking together? Is it just the sheer volume that you're anticipating to see over the next 4 years or next X number of years, and therefore you have to pay for it somehow? What is the biggest obstacle in the way right now when it comes to growth? Is it just money?
um, well, money is a factor, right? What is the tax burden to the people? But what is the social cost? What is the economic cost? We can adopt growth. And first of all, a growth forecast is just a forecast.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee we will grow at that rate to that number. But just to, okay, let's receive a report without giving any thought to, okay, but if we do grow to that, how are we going to do it? How does this affect our master transportation plan, our master housing plan, our infrastructure plan, our water and wastewater plan? Do Chris, do we even have enough water in the ground to support that number of people? That's an unknown. That's an answer we just don't know. And of course, if you're following it, Waterloo Region, next door municipality to us, is all of a sudden going, oh, we're in trouble here. We have planned growth and planned subdivisions, and we might not have enough water. At what point do you go, oh, you know what? When we adopted that report in 2026, and now it's 2036, and people are going, ooh, we're going to have to build a pipeline from Lake Erie. Maybe we should have thought about that in 2026 when we made this decision.
Well, and on the flip side of that, being a rural county, and I'm not throwing shade on any urban big centers, but You also have to think about the agricultural land as well, right? Because growth is great. Growth happens. It's inevitable. It's going to come no matter what we do. Depending on where we grow and how fast we grow, that's what we can control. But what we also need to understand is we have agriculture land right now that is kind of
Precious.
decreasing, exactly, precious and decreasing in size. So when you're looking at growth, are you trying to see where the growth can happen sustainably without taking away from that precious agricultural land that southwestern Ontario is quite known for?
Yeah. Premium land, prestige. These are my notes. These are my notes from that debate. They are, well, I can't see it. They are, yeah, they're sweeping and all-encompassing. Preservation of agricultural land has been one of my bugaboos for a number of years. I grew up on a farm. I think it's important, that's an important piece of the context. I am a foodie. I own a food related business. Knowing where our food comes from and ensuring that we have a safe food supply for Ontario. If we continue, what's the statistic that we're taking 319 acres of agricultural land out of production every day? That's 116,000 acres a year. At one point, we will put Ontario into a food insecure position. Not today. We're not there today, but we will. And so if our growth, if we don't set the right intensification targets, if we don't, if we don't emphasize density and infilling, and I know, the minute that new greenfield land opens up, density targets don't matter anymore. It's like sprawl, single detached homes, and that focus diminishes. The last 4 years, we are running out of land in Woodstock. But the last 4 years, every single planning application has increased intensification and density in the city. We're building up. We're taking parcels of land that, underutilized before, acres and acres. One parcel of land that was 9.79 acres and had one provincial building on it is now going to be transitioned into, I think, 274 housing units.
Can I just interject there for a second and ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
In the city, do you get a sense that people want to see density rather than sprawl? Or is there like a double-edged sword with that?
Well, there's a double-edged sword. I think most people don't think about it. I don't think for most people. Okay,
Well, they don't
if
think
you're
about it until they have a four-story house beside them and they go, oh,
until the planning application. It's the same with, I think I wrote about that in my Substack this weekend about acronyms and ARUs. What is an ARU? Well, it is an immediate conversation into, I'm not opposed to growth, but I don't want it next door to me, right?
it's the weird NIMBYism of it all, right? We don't
Yeah.
want growth. We don't want it in my backyard, but do it somewhere else. But we're not
But
just
it
here.
is it is much cheaper for a municipality to intensify and go with density rather than sprawl. I think it was City of Ottawa did a study on what it costs to expand outside your existing boundaries. And I think in the City of Ottawa's example, it was $1,000, no, $465 per person or $1,000 per average household per year for the existing resident to pay for that new development. That's a lot when, you know, now the province gives us requirements, there gives us rules that we have to abide by. You're supposed to have a 25-year land supply. We don't have that right now.
So are you talking about Oxford County doesn't have that, or are you talking about City of Woodstock doesn't have
Woodstock.
that?
Woodstock
Okay.
does not have enough land. Woodstock, there are people on council that would love to go for a boundary adjustment. I'm in the little corner over by myself sometimes saying maybe let's look at how we can look at density and intensification before let's look after what we have before we take more.
You talk about the social challenges that come with growth as well. Do we have enough hospitals? Do we have enough schooling? But when your population grows, there's also other social services that you have to look into because you're becoming a major hub for a lot of people. A lot
Yes.
of rural communities come to you. And that means, and I know Ontario and AMO and Roma have been doing a big campaign right now about homelessness that is sort of creeping outside of the big urban centers and going into our smaller cities. And it's kind of becoming a bigger issue for more municipalities than it was, say, 5, 10, 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
when you looking at those social services and those social challenges that comes with growth, and I'm going to ask this as the city of Woodstock councillor, does the city have a proper solid foundation that if you do see the continued growth, that you can potentially not be inundated by the challenges and you could turn it into a potential windfall of opportunity?
So in Woodstock and Oxford County, it is a little bit complex because Human Services is an upper tier, is the Oxford County
That's
jurisdiction.
that's why I was like, it was a really
Yeah,
weird question to ask you, but it's a one that mayors are and councilors are having right now.
yeah, yeah. So we have a community safety and well-being plan that is,
A good
at
one too.
Oxford County. But we also our mayor currently has a mayor's task force of social well-being. So we are doing some local work. It is we have an OLG slots facility here in the town, so we do get some money from that, and so that's what we're using to fund some of the initiatives under social well-being under the mayor's task force. Um, but I don't want to say it isn't our lane, but we recognize that there is incredible social need in our community, and you can't just not do it and say that's their problem. That level of government has to look after it. We're doing what we can. In fact, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, a group came forward with a plan to create a food rescue hub, and they were asking for $50,000 out of that mayor's task force fund. And food rescue is, close to my heart. Um, and there was debate about 50,000. Is it enough? Is it too much? Is it, what are they actually going to accomplish with 50,000? And I think probably the only person at the table that knew that there was a lot of money sitting in a community grants reserve. I think there was $130,000 sitting in that reserve. And I kind of leaned over to this counselor and I leaned over to this counselor and I'm like, what if we take an additional $50,000 out of that reserve and give them $100,000 to get this organization going? And admittedly, this is a council that is quite divided on many issues, but leaning over to this counselor and leaning over to that counselor got $100,000 on the table for this organization. Now, um, they if we'd have given them 50,000, they would have gotten off, but they would have had to done more fundraising, more sponsorship, more community, and they need to be focusing on food security right now, not fundraising. So I don't even remember what the original question was now.
You answered the question correctly with the social pressures that come along with
Yeah,
the growth. But I do want to mention, because you are an Oxford County deputy warden, but you're speaking on your behalf. Now, over the last, I would say, year and a half, southwestern Ontario has gone through a bit of a challenging time, let's put it that way, with global tariffs and challenges to the auto sector. We're talking about what's going on in Ingersoll and what happened over
yeah,
the last few months. Now, I'm not going to ask you because that's been talked about to death, but what's the mood right now in Oxford County about the potential opportunities, but also the loss of so many good sectors, jobs that have gone in there? Is there optimism or is it just uneasy times right now?
yeah. It's uneasy. It's uneasy, and because where we're at the very early stages of difficult times, right? Getting the news that a plant is, it's not being shuttered, it's just being, temporarily closed, but for how long? Um, is that a 3 month impact, a 10 month impact, a 2 year impact, a 5 year impact? And I think back to that story that I told about, Perth County and Listowel. It was devastating. It was incredibly devastating to have 500 people lose their jobs in a community of 6,500 people in a plant where mom and dad worked and their 3 adult children worked and their spouses, like multiple family members all worked at the same plant. We've learned lessons about that. It was devastating to the community. And so I know what that feels like, and I know what it took to rebound from that. I would suggest that there is a lot more provincial and federal attention on the Cami plant portfolio, um, simply because it is a real world example of the impacts of one unhinged person across the border, right? But we're also an agricultural community, and agricultural tariffs also are front of mind for me.
Yep.
As a county, we are, but that just shapes our advocacy work. When I was at Roma, and I mean, we had a ministry with a delegation with Ministry of Sport, and of course, you would think that we're going to talk about, an $85 million arena, but I am sitting there looking at it from an economic lens, a tariff lens, a how do we position children in our community to set them up for success, right? Recreation. We know that a public health lens. I'm the chair of the board for public health. I'm not just looking at an arena as a bricks and mortar building with a price tag. I'm looking at all the reasons
Yeah.
why the provincial government should come to the table to assist us in getting this facility up and off the ground, because we know that infrastructure construction is one of the best ways to mitigate economic instability, right? If we've got a whole bunch of people that have lost jobs at Cami, construction jobs, albeit temporary, a 1 or a 2 year build, are better than no efforts at all.
There's also the local impacts of a closure of this magnitude, or shuttering, I should say. I'll use your words, shuttering of a facility like this, because growth depends on if you have a solid economic foundation. If you have good businesses that are hiring, that are looking to expand, when you have a closure like this, it can be a little bit of an economic deterrent to say, should I invest more into this community when they're going through this? So that's why I wanted to ask that question. And I apologize if it came out of left field. So thank you so much for taking that question for me. But I do want to, I'm very cautious of time. I did not realize we're already at 45 minutes. So hopefully you have a few minutes left for me to ask a few more questions. And if not,
Yes.
I will try to wrap up. Okay. So I want to flip the original question a little bit, if you don't mind, because growth, funding, economic uncertainty, it's the story as old as time that I'm hearing across Canada. But the thing that I don't often hear about, because we don't often talk about it, are the things that are going right. The things that we're proud about our communities, the accomplishments that are happening in our community that we want to boast about, but we don't often get time to. So for you, from both your role as city councillor and county councillor to county deputy warden, what makes you proud to be a city of Woodstock councillor and the deputy warden for Oxford County?
So from a community safety and well-being position, like at the City of Woodstock, we just invested significantly in the expansion of Southgate Center, which is active adult living. It's a facility that keeps seniors engaged. There's activities, there's events, there's learning, there's socialization. Like, what did we learn out of COVID is that isolation is the absolute worst, social determinant of health. And it's just, we just had the ribbon cutting ground for that facility. If you want to mitigate healthcare costs for seniors, keep them active, keep
Yeah.
them involved in your community, keep them volunteering. It's a fantastic facility. And I was hesitant up front when the price tag was put in front of council, because I looked at the time we were working with very high interest rates, and I was looking at the debt cost, for a facility. Fortunately, interest rates have come down significantly since that three years ago when we approved that project. Um, but I'm a big believer that even if you weren't on board with a council decision and you were a no vote, once that vote takes place, you get on board and you move on. And it stings sometimes to go home and be like, I was, why didn't everyone else see it my way? But but I've moved on and I embrace Southgate Center and I see the opportunity for our community. And again, you just put on a different hat, put on a public health lens. This is preventative healthcare at work in our community. The other thing from an Oxford County lens that, again, so not sexy, but I'm incredibly proud of our waste diversion rates. Our Oxford County waste management system is a leader in its class in Ontario for waste diversion. And I remember, I think it was Aroma a year ago, someone came up to me from across the room and they're like, "You're from Oxford County, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah. How do you guys get such high diversion rates at your landfill?" And I'm like, you don't? You kind of sometimes think that the best practice that you are embracing is being embraced elsewhere. So diverting construction materials, diverting agricultural plastics, right? All of those straw bales and hay bales get wrapped in that white plastic. That is, so we're diverting that. And now it's organics that we're diverting. My oldest teenager is studying environmental studies at the University of Waterloo. So I've learned a lot from my kiddo, and in turn, that shapes a lot of the decision making that I've been able to support at Oxford County.
So I want to turn to a segment that I'm introducing into this year because this is a big year municipally across Canada. Ontario, Manitoba, British Columbia, parts of the Northwest Territories, parts of Saskatchewan, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick are all going to municipal elections this
Mm.
year later on this fall, besides New Brunswick, because they're the outlier. They go in May. So, as someone who has decided to put their name on the ballot a few years ago, what advice would you give someone thinking about putting their name on the ballot this term of office to give them a leg up or give them a little understanding of what the role actually is?
So first of all, I would encourage someone to really do some deep soul searching on why are you doing this? What motivates you to do it? Do you think it's because you're going to have a lot of power? Because you don't. Do you think it's because it's going to make you a lot of friends? Because it won't. Do you think it's easy? Do you think that it's, every other Thursday night? I think that sometimes they have lunch brought in, it is a lot of work. It is divisive work, right? It isn't we're not braiding hair and singing kumbaya, that's for sure. It's a lot of work. And so I just encourage people to really evaluate why they're looking to run for council. What strengths do they have? What are their characteristic traits? Are you a good listener? That's kind of important.
Yeah, I would agree
And just
wholeheartedly. The
really
old
do
saying
that
is,
soul
right?
searching.
You have two eyes and two ears and one mouth. You should listen twice as much as you talk as a municipal councillor. Literally, then I based a show where the municipal councillor has to talk for an hour, but that's here nor there, Chris. That's here nor there. Thank you so much for answering that. I want to turn to my last segment. I'm going to try and compress this into one question, if you don't mind. Tourism is something that we should be doing a lot more here in Canada. I think it has been happening over the last, I would say, 15 months. More and more Canadians are learning about the grass is always greener on the other side. And there's great tourism opportunities here in Canada that we can go out and see. And I think we're taking it in. So, why should people come to Oxford County? What are some of the great tourism facilities and events or just hidden gems that are make the city of Woodstock and Oxford County a place to stop?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm not sure if I've said this already, but I'm a foodie. I love food, and
I'm not getting that from this conversation at all, counselor. What do you mean
yeah,
by foodie? What's a foodie?
but so tourism is an upper tier in Oxford County responsibility, and our tourism department has really embraced culinary assets in our community. We have a cheese trail, so we are home to, well, we are known as the dairy capital of Canada, I think, dairy capital
Yep.
of Canada, and we are home to a number of award-winning cheesemakers and cheese dairies. In fact, the oldest um, um, owner-operated cheese dairy, Bright's Cheese, is in Oxford County. The oldest dairy, I think, in Canada, 140, 150 years. So the cheese trail features all of those cheesemakers, but also businesses that utilize those cheeses in some way, shape, or form within their business. So restaurants that feature those cheeses on the menu, or they sell it in bulk, or whatever that happens to be. So and I know that the tourism department is working on a couple of new culinary programs for 2026. We have some amazing outdoor assets,
Yeah.
trails, parks, bike lanes, to be able to get out and enjoy. We have some pretty nice scenery, all year round. We have some beautiful, beautiful trails, beautiful parks. And those are low cost opportunities, to come and enjoy Oxford County and enjoy the people, enjoy the atmosphere, and enjoy some local cheese.
And FYI, I was just there 2 years ago, and I can say, yes, the cheese is fantastic. I had the pleasure of sitting down with, I think her name is Samantha. I'm going to get it wrong here, but the one of the people at Oxford County Tourism, and
Oh,
I will
Meredith?
Meredith. There
Meredith?
you go.
Yep.
I don't know where Samantha came from, but here we are in 2026, 2 years after I recorded that interview. I will say the cheese trail is one that you need to go see if you're in southwestern Ontario. That's just my own personal plug there. But after a long day of council meetings, where do you go in the county? Where do you go in the city to just decompress? And I'm going to preface it by saying you can't say your own house, because all the extroverts that say they're extroverts on this show really become introverts when they need to decompress. So
Yeah.
where in the actual community do you go and decompress after a long day?
So both City Hall and the Oxford County Admin Building are in right in downtown Woodstock.
Yeah.
And downtown Woodstock has so many amazing, diverse restaurants and cafes and pubs and so yeah, we're frequently we'll go and decompress at one of those eateries. Um,
Because why? You're a foodie? I just want to make sure I got that right here,
well,
right?
sometimes, sometimes. Um, but my youngest loves to go and walk on our trails, and sometimes just to go on a nice 2 kilometer walk on a trail and just surround yourself with nature. Sure, it with some boba, you got to go get some bubble tea and just take a nice walk along. It's called the Piddock. It's our conservation authority um, area. It's just it's a beautiful area to just decompress, get some exercise, and think through what happened at council and what steps need to happen next.
Sounds relaxful if you ask me. But I want to ask my final question. It's the $1 million one, because at the end of the day, you've pretty much painted a big picture, but let's put the final touches on it. In your opinion, what makes the city of Woodstock and Oxford County such a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
Oh man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one because there's so many things, right? We're known as the friendly city. Oxford County is known as the dairy capital of Canada. Um, Years ago, when I worked in economic development, we branded this area around people, proximity, and prosperity. It is a beautiful area to live. I think people are really proud of their parks and their schools and their businesses, and that reflects the relationships that we have as neighbors. We're just at that sweet spot as a size of a city that we still look out for our neighbors. We still have those relationships. Um, Community spirit is strong here, and I think that that's a wonderful feature to have in your community. And it's not just team spirit around a specific sport. It is community spirit. And I think that that's one of the key things that makes Woodstock a great place to live. As someone who has moved here, I'm not from here. That's what I see in people, and that's what makes it yeah, it's what makes it a great place to live. It's
Counselor,
it's buzzing enough, but not crazy busy like a large urban center.
Well, Counselor, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for sitting down for the last, yes, almost an hour and talking about
Sorry.
yourself. Hey, I love this conversation. I didn't realize it had gotten that far. And I was like, whoa, this
Yeah,
seems like time flies when you're having fun. So I want to thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me. Greatly appreciate it for telling your story, but also talking about the city of Woodstock and Oxford County as a whole. It is an honor and pleasure. And hopefully, over the next few months, our paths will cross and we can do this again in person over a cup of coffee or as a foodie myself, over some nice, delicious food.
cheese. We could do that. I would love to connect in that way with you.
Thanks for tuning in for another edition of Cross Border Interviews. Our goal is to create meaningful conversations that inform, that connect, and that strengthen communities. Now, if you found value in today's discussion, we ask you to take a moment to subscribe to the show, leave us a review on Apple Podcast or on YouTube, and share this episode with your community. And if you are a municipally elected official with a story to tell in any province or territory across Canada, please, we invite you to be part of this conversation that you saw today. Reach out to us today by visiting crossbordernetwork.ca and learn how you can take part in an upcoming episode. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews shortly. Till then, everyone.